Okay, let's get back to our lectures on leadership and teams. In the next major lecture that we want to take a look at here are other leadership perspectives, And under that, I'm going to have three major topics. I'm going to talk about upper echelon leaders, also known as up leaders. We'll be using that phrase a lot. And the first major topic with regard to them is this upper echelon leaders' basic information. Then the second major topic we'll talk about is characteristics of up leaders. And then we'll close with a third major topic, how do up leaders affect their organizations? So let's take a look at the first of those major topics. Again, it's upper echelon leaders or up leaders, just some basic information. And under basic information, I have, it looks like, three major points to look at. Kind of a definition of what an up leader is. Up leaders are impacted by strategic forces such as, and the third and final of the major topics will be factors that moderate the power of up leaders. So let's start off then with the first of those three. Again, we're in upper echelon leaders basic information. The first of those three again was up leaders. Basically a definition. So let me give you a definition, a couple of comments, some examples, and things of that nature. The definition of an up leader or an upper echelon leader, these are strategic leaders who consider, anticipate, and focus on internal and external parts and events, and who maintain a flexible long-term outlook. Strategic leaders who consider, anticipate, and focus on internal and external parts and events, and who maintain a flexible long-term outlook. Basically, again, you're top leaders in an organization. Oftentimes, if you've taken a class in strategic management, oftentimes these are the people we're talking about, the strategic leaders of a corporation, strategic leaders of a business. So still in this definition of up leaders, let me give you some examples. Examples include CEOs, presidents, COOs, chief operating officers, members of the board of directors, and then something called, here's a buzzword for you, phrase, the top management team. The top management team, which is abbreviated and known by the acronym of TMT, top management team. So those are examples. And let's go to the third and final point under this definition of up leaders. Just a comment with some subpoints for you. The biggest differences between up leaders and other leaders include such things as, it's not the leadership process, but rather the level and scope of the leadership. So it's not the process, how we're making decisions, how we're carrying out leadership. It's talking about the level of leadership. We're talking very top, right? One of the things you might want to do is take a look at table 7.1, kind of gives you some examples here. In addition, still in the this comments about the biggest differences. In addition, up leaders usually have more discretion and more power than other leaders in an organization. Again, usually they're at the top, so they can say yes, no, up, down, whatever. They usually have the discretion and power to do that. Two more differences in this point. They may have more parts to fit together into a much bigger system. Lots of managers, lots of leaders have various parts that have to fit together into a system, into a team, into your business organization. But when you're talking about the up leaders, they have a lot more parts, and the system's a lot bigger because they're at the top, and all the parts in the system, they're the ones that are responsible for. So again, they have a lot more parts to fit into a bigger system. And finally, up leaders usually set the vision of the organization. Again, if you go back to strategic management, one of the most important aspects of a strategic manager is he or she is the one who pretty much sets the vision. Here's where we're going to go. Here's what our goal is going to be. Then starts to put together the strategy. Well, again, up leaders are usually the ones that set the vision for the organization. So under the basic information of up leaders, the first major topic of the three was basically a definition, and we've covered all the various parts of it. Again, there are three subparts. So let's go to the second major topic under this basic information for up leaders. And this says up leaders are impacted by strategic forces such as. Up leaders are impacted by strategic forces such as. I mean, think about it. They're at the very top. So you say, well, who can impact them? Nobody's going to impact them. Well, maybe there are some things that impact them. There's things that impact everybody. Well, with regard to up leaders, they list 6 impacting factors. Well, let's take a look at The first is the culture of the organization. Certainly the culture of the organization is going to impact your strategic leader, your up leader. Second, the structure of your organization is going to impact him or her. And the structure is going to look at such things as, is it centralized, is it decentralized? That's certainly going to impact the up leader. It's also going to look at how formal and informal the organization is. Does everything need to be signed off 3 times on 4 sheets of paper and dance upside down like a chicken with your head cut off or something like that? Or do we just kind of run things by the seat of our pants? We do it when we need it, and we do it however we need it. So again, how formal or informal the organization is, that's certainly part of the structure. Another aspect of the structure is how tightly or loosely are we integrated? Are all the parts of it, is it a really tight organization, or is it kind of loose and there's maybe not as much control or whatever? People have more say with regard to what they do. So certainly how tightly or loosely integrated the corporation or business is going to be impacts the structure. And the last thing with regard to structure that the textbook looks at is how large or small is the span of control. How large or small is the span of control? The span of control is talking about, how many layers are we going to have here? Again, when we talked about Nucor steel, we said that they had very few layers. I think I read someplace only had 6. I think that's kind of low. It's probably more than that. And I think they said that U.S. Steel had something like, 10, 20, something like that. That's probably a little high on the 20 side. But again, it's span of control. If you have a big span of control, you're probably going to impact the leaders. If you have a small span of control, you're going to impact the up leaders too. So with regard to up leaders are impacted by strategic factors such as culture, also structure. Let's go to the third thing that they're impacted by, the strategy. Certainly strategy of the organization is going to impact them. Strategy is basically saying, where are we going to go, when and how? Where are we going to go, when and how? Another thing that's going to impact strategic leaders is technology. Particularly technology with regard to converting inputs into outputs. Whatever we make, whatever we sell, we certainly have things that come into the organization that we convert and we do something with, and then we ship out and sell or whatever. And technology can certainly have a big impact with regard to that. So certainly that's going to impact your strategic or your up leaders. The next thing that's going to impact the up leaders is just leadership at all, leadership overall. At all the various levels, not just the top. Do we have good leaders? Do we have bad leaders? Trustworthy leaders? Ethical leaders? Unethical leaders? Inspirational leaders? Do we, what type of leadership do we have? Do we even have leadership? Is it good? Is it bad? Certainly that's going to impact the up leaders. And then finally, the last thing that's mentioned by the book that's going to impact the up leaders is the environment. The environment. Now, when they say the environment, they're not necessarily thinking of the environment the way that maybe you and I do. We're not talking about helping the salamanders and saving the whales and breathing fresh air. Those are all certainly part of the environment, all very good things. But when they talk about the environment, they're talking about everything that's outside the firm. If you basically draw a circle and everything inside that circle is in the firm, you can put an F there. Outside the firm, everything that's outside is in the environment. You can put an E there. So when we talk about the environment, we're talking about all these outside forces. And with regard to that, some of the tools that managers use to try to do an analysis of those outside forces, they use something called Porter's 5 Forces. Porter's 5 Forces. And they also use something called PESTLE. PESTLE. P-E-S-T-L-E. P-E-S-T-L-E, and all the letters are capitalized. Those 2 models to help a manager to look at the environment, the external forces, etc., are really helpful, and you'll find that many, many businesses use them. If you're not familiar with Porter's 5 Forces or PESTLE, I suggest that you take a look maybe on do a Google search or Wikipedia or whatever, and get a general idea at least what is Porter's 5 Forces and what is PESTLE. As a concluding remark for the second major topic, excuse me, of up leaders are impacted by, etc. All of the above things, those 6 things that we mentioned, all of the above must be managed by the upper echelon leaders, by the up leaders, so that they balance and they fit together. All those different aspects. That's not just 6, because some of them have multiple parts to them, right? The up leader has to manage all those. They have to find a way to balance all the parts. They have to find a way to fit all the parts. It's a heck of a challenge. If you do it well, you're going to be quite successful with it. It's there's there are a lot of people that will look and say, you know, the most important aspect of business is not necessarily the individual parts that you have in your business, but it's the way you tie the parts together, the way you fit the parts into a system. And that's what we're talking about here. Can you fit all these parts into a system that's going to work? So that finishes up the second major topic, all those situational things that will impact the upper echelon leaders. Let's go to the third and the final major point, and that is factors that moderate the power of up leaders. Factors that moderate the power of up leaders. And with regard to this, the textbook divides them into two types of factors. You have external factors, you have internal factors. External factors and internal factors. Let's break those down. Let's get an idea what they're talking about. External factors are factors like market growth, legal constraints, including governmental regulation, the type of industry that you're in, environmental uncertainty, shareholders, and the media and the public, including customers. Think about that. All those things are outside. I mean, basically, if you look outside your organization, you know, you have customers, you have competitors, you have suppliers, you have, you know, the government, you have the society, you have the economic system, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So those are external factors that certainly are going to moderate or play an important part in the power of an up leader. Well, that was the first of the two. The second of the two are internal factors. Internal factors, and the textbook gives some examples of internal factors, including the stability of your firm. Do we have a stable firm, or are we on loose ground here? Are we gonna tilt over here? Also, the size and structure of your firm. If I have a big firm and a certain type of structure, that might impact how I'm going to manage. If I have a small firm and another type of structure, that's going to impact how I'm going to lead as an up leader. Let's go to the third of the internal factors mentioned by the book, the culture of your firm. That's certainly internal. And the culture of your firm is certainly going to impact you as an up leader. You can't do things against the culture. If you do, you're going to have all sorts of resistance and have to go through massive change, and maybe that's what you're going to do. But nonetheless, it's pretty difficult to go against the culture of the firm. Other internal factors include the stage of your firm's organizational development. Are you new? Are you mature? Are you declining? Where are we? So with regard to that, the stage of your firm's organizational development certainly has something to do with it. Are we moving up? Have we peaked? Are we moving down? Certainly the stage of your firm's organizational development is going to have an impact. Another internal factor that's going to have an impact on the up leaders are the board of directors, the members of the board of directors or the board of directors. What you might not know is, at least from a legal standpoint, in most states say that the authority to run a company rests with the board of directors, not with the officers. We're always concerned about what did the president say, what did the vice president say, and things of that nature. But actually, the board of directors are above the officers. So, of course, an internal factor that you have to deal with if you're an up leader is not only have to worry about those people in your organization below you, you've got to look at the people above you, that board of directors that you have. Certainly is going to impact you. The last of the internal factors that's going to impact up leaders, as mentioned by the book, is that TMT that we talked about earlier, the top management team. You're going to look at the top management team. You're going to ask questions such as, you know, how powerful is it? You know, what's its makeup? Is it diverse? Is it similar? You're going to talk about such things as, you know, are the members of a top management team all in-house? Do we have some people from outside the company with regard to it? So that top management team is certainly going to impact you as an up leader. Now that finishes the first major topic under Other Leadership Perspectives. That finishes upper echelon leaders' basic information. And we looked at what's the definition, we looked at how upper echelon leaders are impacted, and we looked at the factors that moderate the power of upper echelon leaders. Let's now go to the second major topic, characteristics of up leaders. And with regard to characteristics of up leaders, I have one major point with a lot of subpoints, and then probably get to a graphic as well. The major subpoint, the characteristics of up leaders, your authors say there are two common themes. Two common themes. Does that mean these are the only? No, there are probably some other things too, but there are two common themes. So let's take a look at these two common themes, and then I want to talk about a chart, a matrix that we can take a look at. But with regard to the two common themes, as I mentioned, there's 3 points that are mentioned here, the two themes in the chart. The first point under the common themes is the degree to which the leader seeks a challenge. The degree to which a leader seeks a challenge. The other common theme is the degree to which the leader seeks control. The degree to which a leader seeks control. So we're going to end up putting together a chart where on one of the axes we're going to be looking at, do you seek a challenge, and the other is, do you seek control. So we're going to take a look at both those. Let's start off by looking at, does a leader seek a challenge? Just some of the comments that are made by the book here. Basically it's asking, is the leader, is this up leader, a risk taker or risk avoider? There are some up leaders who are one, some who are the other. And again, what's the best? Well, again, Machiavelli would say the best is one that fits the situation. Let's take a look at the second comment made under taking a challenge. And this is, does your up leader prefer to swim in uncharted waters? Or does he or she prefer the sea of the tried and the true? The sea of the tried and the true. Uncharted waters or the sea of the tried and the true? Another comment here with regard to seeking a challenge. Does he or she like to formulate strategy? Does he or she like to formulate strategy? Strategy is usually a plan of how to get you somewhere, and usually where you're going is someplace new, so you're usually talking about having a change or whatever. Do you like to do that? Do you like to plan? Do you like to put together strategies? Do you have vision of where you'd like to go, visions of change? So again, the third point here with regard to challenge is, does he or she like to formulate strategy? Let's go to the fourth of these points. Is he or she a fearless maverick or a team player? Is he or she a fearless maverick or a team player? Do you have an up leader who does everything on his or her own, goes off, everybody else is going this way and the leader goes that way? Or is it someone who's a team player, we're all together in this and we're moving forward? That's certainly another common theme that you see with regard to a challenge. Let's also take a look at actually we have 3 more comments here with regard to challenge. The next is, does he or she believe that he or she can accomplish anything and figure out anything? Does he or she believe that, that he or she can accomplish anything and figure out anything? Some up leaders think, I can do anything. You give me whatever problem it is, I will solve it. I'm a great problem solver. Others look at things and say, oh my gosh, there's no way to figure this out. It's complete chaos. There's no logic to it. I don't know where we're going to go. So what type of up leader do you have? One of the classes that I taught at Pitt involved strategic management. And we looked there at something called the 4 levels of uncertainty, which is the same thing here. Can I accomplish anything or figure out anything? Well, there are 4 levels of uncertainty, and let me give you what the 4 are, and it relates to this. The first level, the top level, the level that I suppose many aspire to be, is the know everything level. Regarding uncertainty, there is no uncertainty, or if it is, it's really small. I know everything. I know what's going to happen. I'm in control of this. I'm in great shape. The next level down is, well, there is uncertainty. I'm not sure exactly what's going to happen, but it's going to be some options. It's either going to be A or B or C. That might be 2 options or 4 options or whatever. I just gave you 3. But you know that the answer, what's going to happen in the future, it's going to be A, B, or C. It's going to be a couple of options that you're going to have. The next level of uncertainty, as we continue to move into greater uncertainty, is a range of options, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if it's going to be A, B, and C. I have no idea. All I can do is pretty much guess that what's ever going to happen is going to be between here and here. There's a range. Someone asks you, you're a marketing salesperson. Well, next quarter, or how many more new sales are you going to have? I don't know, but, just based on what we've done in the past, it's probably going to be a range of, we're probably going to have between, 100 and 200 or something like that. You have a range. Well, the last level of uncertainty, the worst level, The one with the most uncertainty is called true ambiguity. True ambiguity. We have no idea what the heck's going on. It's so ambiguous with regard to it. So again, going back to this point, does your up leader believe basically that he or she knows everything and can accomplish, literally anything? Or are we at the far end of the scale that this person, can't really figure out anything? There's just true ambiguity here, etc. So where are we on that? Just two more comments with regard to a challenge. The next is, does he or seek challenges? Some people love challenge. Challenge me and great. If not, I'm bored and I don't want to do anything. So you want to find whether or not your leader is someone who loves challenges or not so keen with it, or in between, and we're in between. And the final point with the degree to which a leader seeks a challenge is, does he or she thrive in a climate of crisis? Does he or she thrive in a climate of crisis? Let's face it, frankly, most of us don't. A crisis occurs and we're overwhelmed and our emotions are up and our stress levels up and we're grasping for straws and we're frustrated or whatever. But there are some people, they live for the crisis. They're the ones who figure out things in the worst of times. Just throw everything at me and I'm going to figure it out. Just challenge me as much as you want. So again, with regard to a challenge, does he or she thrive in a culture, in a climate of crisis? So of the two themes, I talked about challenge. Now let's talk about control. And this is the degree to which the leader seeks control. So again, the textbook has some comments here, kind of makes some sense in looking at what degree of control do you seek? Do you seek control? A couple points. Is he or she willing to give up no or some control? Is he or she willing to give up no control or some control? And how much? And with regard to how much, is this someone who likes to delegate to followers? Is this someone who likes to have what's called participative management? Or is it somebody who likes to have everything, I'm running it, nobody else has any control, I'm going to have all control? Let's go to the second comment that we have here with regard to control. How centralized or decentralized does this person desire authority to be? If someone wants really centralized authority, they want complete control. If it's decentralized, they're okay with having control, but it's not as great as in a centralized system. Next example is, how open is this up leader to diverse opinions? How open to diverse opinions? If you're open to diverse opinions, you're allowed to letting people have a little bit more control. You're not in control of everything. Alternatively, if you don't have diverse opinions, remember we talked about some of those leaders, particularly the unethical leaders and some of the charismatic leaders or whatever, no, nobody else has an opinion but me. Diversity of opinion is not going to be tolerated here. Well, if you're in that case, then you're really in control because nobody else can think outside the box. Everybody has to think like you. You're in control. Let's take a look at another example here. This is, how much, and here's a buzzword that they use, organicity. Organicity. Ever heard of the word organicity? How much organicity does this leader have? Well, what's organicity mean? Again, you just wonder where some of these writers of books come up with these terms or whatever. But organicity is defined as how open and flexible is that leader? How open and flexible? If you're a real control freak, you're probably not very open and probably not very flexible. Alternatively, if control's not your bag and you're not worried about control, you might be more open, more flexible. So again, this comment is, how much organicity does this person want or feel comfortable with? Just two more comments here under control. How much uniformity do you want versus conformity? I'm sorry, in fact, I shouldn't say versus. How much uniformity do you want? How much conformity do you want? Do you want everybody uniform? Do you want everybody to conform and they're all going to be the same? Well, there's high control. Do you not really care that much about uniformity? Do you not really care that everybody conforms and makes themselves the same? Then you're probably a little bit open to not as much control with regard to it. And the final point with regard to the degree to which a leader seeks control is, how adaptable are you? How adaptable? Those who are in great control oftentimes are not very adaptable because it's my way or the highway. Those who are okay letting loose the reins at least a little bit, giving up some control, they tend to be a little bit more adaptable, a little bit more adaptable. Now, at this point, the third and final topic that I have under this second major point of characteristics of up leaders. The first topic was two common themes, and then we looked at the first of them and the second. Well, the third point under two common themes is I want to show you this graphic called the Strategic Leadership Type Matrix. The Strategic Leadership Type Matrix. So let me first put that up for you so you can take a look at that. Okay, let's take a look at that chart. As you can see on the chart, it's divided into quadrants. We have an upper row and a lower row, and then each row will have a box on the left and a box on the right. So what we ought to do is let's start and we'll talk about the upper row. We'll start with the box on the left and go to the right, and we'll go to the lower row, start with the box on the left and go to the right. Let's start with the upper row. In fact, before I do that, as you take a look at this chart, you can see that there are two axes, or axes. The one is control, and if you're on the control, which is the horizontal axis, if you're on the left, you're high. You're high in control. You want to be in control of everything. You're almost a control freak. If you're on the right, you're low. Control's not all that big a deal, and you don't mind if somebody else is either sharing control or might even be in control. Let's then take a look at the vertical axis, and that's the axis with regard to challenge. If you're at the top, you're high in challenge. You want challenges. If you're at the bottom, you're low. You're not so hot about challenges. You like the way the things are now. Let's not start something new. So given those two, let's take a look at these rows and the boxes. So starting with the upper row and going to the box on the left, you notice it says HCI. That stands for High Control Innovator. High Control Innovator. Because if you look at that person on the control axis, we have this person is on the left, so is high in control, wants a lot of control. And on the vertical axis, the challenge axis, it's high with regard to challenge. This is somebody who wants a lot of challenge. So this is someone who is a high control innovator. High control innovator. Challenge, innovation, control, yeah, absolutely. This type of person is a visionary and also a control freak. Depending on where you are in this, a visionary and a control freak. And the example that they give in the textbook is Jeffrey Katzenberg, the former CEO of Disney. So you want to take a look at that. Take a look at what they talk about with regard to Jeffrey. Now, still staying in the top two boxes, the top row, let's now go to the right-hand box, and here you see it says PI. This stands for Participative Innovator. Participative Innovator. And if you take a look at this on the control axis, this is someone who's low on control, but on the challenge axis, this is someone who's high in challenge. I don't care if I'm in control, but boy, give me lots of challenges. This someone is a participative innovator. This is someone who likes the cutting edge and is also open. I don't have a closed door. I'm not in control of everything. Yeah, do whatever you want. That's great. Let's work together, whatever. But let's seek these challenges out. The example that they give here, someone who's a participative innovator, is John Chambers of Cisco Systems. John Chambers of Cisco Systems. So you want to take a look at your book. What does it say about John? And what's he? Why is he a participative innovator? Let's now go to the lower level here, the lower row. And if we go to the boxes on the left, you'll see SQG. SQG. That stands for Status Quo Guardian. Status Quo Guardian. This is somebody who, with regard to control, is really high, but with regard to challenge, is really low. So I want to be in control, but I don't want change. Right? I don't want challenges here. So this is the Status Quo Guardian. This person doesn't want change. And the textbook gives an example of two leaders. Actually, they're related. Jamie and Victor Zhao. Jamie and Victor Zhao from Linksys. So take a look at what the book says about them. Take a look and see, what is the Status Quo Guardian and what's good, what's bad about that person, that type of leader. Now let's go to, still in the lower row, let's go to the box on the right, and you see the letters PM there. PM stands for Process Manager. Process Manager. This is someone who is low on control. I don't care if I'm in control or not. Low in control, And with regard to challenge, low there too. I don't want anything new. I don't care if I'm in control of everything, but I don't want anything new. This is a process manager. The general comments is this is someone who's open, but careful and slow to change. Open, not in control of everything, not control freak, but careful and slow to change. Not really big for innovation and challenges, etc. And the example that the book gives here is Lou Gerstner, the CEO of IBM. The CEO of IBM. So what you want to do is, again, take a look at what they say in the book about Lou and what do they say about process managers. Now, that finishes up this the second major topic that we have here on the characteristics of UP leaders, and we're looking at some common themes, etc. And this finishes up, we looked at the two common themes, and I said I want to talk about the chart. Well, this finishes that. But before we move away from the chart, I'd like you to take a look at the chart. And I'd like you to take a look at where you would fit in on the chart. You know yourself better than I do. You know yourself better than anybody else. So are you low or high with regard to control? Are you low or high with regard to challenge? And you don't have to be way high or way low. You can kind of be in the middle too. Where would you be in this chart? Because this gives you an idea too with regard to the type of leadership you have. Now, this strategic leadership matrix is talking a lot about up leaders and strategic leaders, but I think it can still apply in many ways to you as you start to move through the organization. So where are you? And then as you get into an organization and as you start to move up through it, take a look at your up leaders, your strategic leaders. Where do they fit on this chart? And based on where they fit, does that mean anything for you as you try to interact with them? Could be, could be. Let's go to the third and final major point for this topic, and that is how do executives, how do up leaders affect their organizations? How do executives, how do up leaders affect their organizations? Okay, let's go to the last topic, the final main topic, the third main topic. And this is how do executives, how do up leaders affect their organizations? How do executives, how do up leaders affect their organizations? You want to take a look at figure 7.4. 7.4, and by the way, while I'm on this, with regard to that chart that we just talked about, you want to take a look at figure 7.3 and table 7.3. Figure 7.3 and table 7.3 as well with regard to that chart. Well, how do up leaders, how do executive leaders impact or affect their organization? The textbook gives 5 ways, and my guess is it's probably, the real number is probably almost infinite ways that they affect it. But let's take a look at the 5 ways. The 5 ways they have here are very good ways, very well written. The first, they say that these up leaders directly make decisions and choices, and usually the biggest ones. They directly make decisions and choices, and usually the biggest ones. Wasn't that the case? You know, as someone who's, the CEO of a company, president of a company, is making decisions that usually impact the whole company. It's usually impacting lots of people. There's lots of processes involved. Oftentimes it's a long-term decision, oftentimes lots of money insofar as the investment, what we're going to do to get it started, the type of money it might be making, the potential for profit or loss, etc. So they're making oftentimes the biggest of the decisions and choices. The second way that executives affect their organizations is they allocate resources. They allocate resources. Let's face it, whatever organization you're in, you want resources. You want additional money. You want new employees. You want new equipment. You want new buildings. You want new, additional, and all those additional resources. Who's the final say? Who has the final say of who gets what? The CEO, the up leader. Now, sometimes they delegate those duties to others, but even when they do delegate those duties to others, they usually put on various guidelines, which will basically say whether or not Department X is getting a raise this year, whether or not Department Y is getting new equipment, etc. So again, very important thing that up leaders do with regard to organizations, they allocate resources. The third point mentioned by the book that these leaders do and how they impact the organization is they control the reward and punishment systems. Control the reward and punishment systems. Go back to that U.S. Air baggage handlers case that we had when we were talking about change and everything else like that. Who do you think originally set that up? It came from the top and eventually worked its way into the system or whatever. So they set their reward and punishment system. Let's go to the fourth way that these up leaders impact organizations. They select other leaders. The other leaders within the organization, the up leader is not the only one. You have, vice presidents or whatever, and then you have middle-level leaders and managers and low-level leaders and managers. Who ends up picking them? Well, the up leader. And maybe the up leader delegates the authority to others, but again, it's the up leader has the final say with regard to that. And these other leaders that are chosen, that means that the up leader has a lot to do with regard to recruitment and promotions and demotions, and particularly the last two have a lot to do with the reward system, right? Well, let's go to the fifth and the final way that these up leaders affect their organizations. They set the norms and behavior models. They set the norms and behavior models, and basically they set the culture for the company. They set the culture for the organization. Now think about this. Many people will look up to the leaders as they are the role models that we should have. Whatever they do, their behavior, we should emulate. Hopefully they're right. Hopefully they're good people that are up there and they're doing the right thing. But whether they are or they aren't, most people in the organization are looking at them and modeling their behavior after it. What they're doing is the normal behavior, so I should do that too. This sets up the culture of the company. The culture is, this is how we do things here. And who sets that up? Usually the top leaders, the up leaders. Very important aspect of any type of business is the culture of the business. Again, who has the biggest impact on it? The up leaders do. So that finishes what we're going to be talking about with regard to this unit on other leader perspectives. And we look particularly at up leaders, these upper echelon leaders and the strategic leaders that we have. A couple of thoughts for you as we conclude this section is we went over various aspects and we talked about up leaders. You may be sitting there and saying, well, I'm just a student. I'm not a president of Boeing. I'm not a president of General Electric. I'm not a president of PricewaterhouseCoopers or whatever it might be, or PNC Bank. I'm not an up leader. What do I care about this? Well, a couple of things. Eventually, hopefully, you will be an up leader. This gives you some ideas of what that's going to be like, gives you an idea of some of your choices, how you can manage that, but something you can do even now with regard to it. These things that we talked about with regard to up leaders, the up leaders you currently have probably have many of the characteristics that we just talked about. So now you can understand them perhaps a little bit better than you did before. And because of that, now that you maybe know them a little bit better, maybe that will help your interaction with them. And if you have a better interaction with your up leader, you're probably going to be an insider. And what did we say with regard to insiders recently? So with regard to this, hopefully some of the materials that we gave to you will not only help you in the future, but will help you now. As we conclude this class, as I've said in some of the other classes, if any of you have any questions about the topic, about assignments, about a grade, any questions whatsoever, don't hesitate to let me know. Sadly, we're not in class together. So, at the end of class, you can't come up and say, hey, Fogarty, what's this grade? How did I do that? Or, listen, I looked at the syllabus, I looked at what we're supposed to be doing next. I have no idea what the heck you're trying to say. Well, I'm not in class. You're not in class. So you can't do that. And it looks then that you're kind of stuck. Well, to a degree maybe, but not as much as you might think. Anytime you have a question, you have a concern, you have a suggestion, try this, try that, or whatever, let me know. Shoot me an email. We can correspond on email. We can get together on the phone or through texting, and we certainly can get together with regard to a Zoom meeting or something like that. Just because we're not together doesn't mean that I can't help you. If there's a way that I can help you, please let me know. As I said, I love teaching, and the best thing about it is helping you and your colleagues in class. Well, I hope you enjoyed tonight's class. I hope you picked up some tools for your toolkit that will continue to help to make you a better leader. Our next topic that we're going to be getting into is leading teams. And if you think about it, what's the topic of our class? It's leadership and teams, so we're going to be getting into leading teams. Very important topic, and certainly is related to Uchi and Theory Z, who he was saying that team building is really important with regard to good management and leadership skills. So let's take a look at that. But again, I'm done for this lecture. I hope you had a good evening, and I'll see you folks next time when we talk about team building. Good night, everybody.